Happy Monday.
Hey-o!
Hello.
There we go. Made it just under the wire. Oh, are we down one just to Robert Young?
Who cares? I'm Justin Robert Young. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, really. I mean, it's kind of basically what he does.
I mean, I could do that too. Some stickers are DIAF. This reminds me of a wrestler.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That was great. You really
I'm
got
funny. Look at me, effortlessly humorous and likable and charming. Jerk.
Did I mention I live in a beautiful upscale part of Oakland, California? Lake Merritt is the best.
Named for my good friend Tom Merritt, unlike my lousy friends Brian Brushwood and Andrew Main.
I don't see a Lake Main and
Brian.
Brushwood.
He chose. He chose.
All right, I think I'm good to go over here.
Ooh.
Is there anything else you need? Anything you need to send me, Andrew?
No. What? Was I a thing?
No, just links or show stuff. Whatever.
I once went for a walk around Lake Merritt with Tom Merritt.
Meritception.
Okay. Alrighty then. If we're all good to go,
Yeah.
then take it away, Andrew, in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Bryce Castillo,
Hello.
Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's always
That's
who the
all
lineup
we've
is
ever needed.
every day.
That's
Yep.
as it's always been.
Yeah, I know. I noticed too that I feel guilty because it's like every time Bryce is on, like fill in, you realize Bryce is kind of like the heart of the show and why it happens all the time.
Yeah,
and I do the introductions. Me, Andrew, Brian, and Justin. And later on, I'm like, oh hey, Bryce. I think I need a new intro, like and produced by Bryce Castillo. So anyhow,
Nice and short.
gentlemen, did any of you do any Black Friday shopping?
Man, I Black Friday is such a weird thing, right? Because it's such a huge deal for all of our independent online stores. I hit refresh on my store's website to just constantly see how it was going.
But you didn't buy anything.
No, I didn't. I was too busy minding my own shop, so to speak, right?
I almost did. I almost wanted to go out and try to brave the crowds for some cheap like video games or something, but I need to watch my spending this part of the year.
Oh yeah. What about you? Do you get in on the whole shop extravaganza?
You know, I got some household stuff because I had some Amazon, like I do some Amazon affiliate stuff, so I had some Amazon money, from there, and I'm like, all right, I'll get some stuff I need for the kitchen, things like that. So I did that, and I got some like training stuff, but I didn't like go crazy, and I have a friend, she's from India, and kind of had to explain to her like, don't read the ads and decide you need everything, figure out what you need, then.
What's that new version of the Amazon Alexa they've got? The one with video on it?
Oh,
the show?
The Echo.
Echo.
Oh, no, the
Echo
show.
Show? Is that what it's called?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I had that.
How is it?
I had it for about a day.
Oh, really? And it was just like an iPad laying in your kitchen?
With a much less resolution, tilted at a funny angle, and it didn't do as much as, let's say, even to like a video Kindle or whatever.
Wow.
Well, it's weird because I wouldn't want to sit around and like watch something or like I don't even know that I would want a video call like this, because at least with a phone I can move around.
Yeah, but also having it there as an installation would satisfy one requirement that makes me nervous about leaving. I got a almost 14-year-old who watches over her sister sometimes, and I just think these are kids that drop phones or don't know if the batteries or can't get a hold. Like having an installation there, if I knew for a fact that I'd always be able to get through, or peek in on them, or that they could press an emergency button to call someone or something. That might make a difference.
I got it because I'm like, oh yeah, I see the idea of a thing that does everything the Echo does, plus the video. And like I sit here in my station here, I've got my iPad Pro over here, my Mac here, I've got my Echo right over here. And I was thinking, oh, I'll just I have my phone on my little propped up stand. But I thought, oh, it'd be kind of cool to have this there because I use the Echo for so much stuff, and the video display would be cool. But the video display is just. It's one that sits at this weird angle. It's just, you look at that thing, it's just at this weird angle that I'm like, I don't.
The only way, it looks like the only way to really look at the screen is to stand in front of it and stare down at the counter. It seems like for the rest of the kitchen, I can see what you mean by it not really looking like it's facing you.
Yeah, and it cannot see that little girl on the floor. I swear to you, it's on the table like that.
Well, it's angled up too, right?
Yeah, so I get the problem is we're used to flat screens in front of us. We don't put screens at an angle unless we're sitting on like a laptop or whatever, and just to kind of increase distance. I just think ergonomically, I don't think it was really. I think they thought, oh, we'll put it this way so it'll be a different kind of thing. I loved one of my favorite things ever was remember the Sunflower iMac, which was on the swivel.
Oh, with the.
The one that looked like a desk lamp?
The Pixar lamp, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a cool thing because that display, back when displays were smaller and it was key to move them around, I love that kind of thing. And I think that form factor is kind of a cool one.
And I think there is a place for some kind of kitchen installation, home hub connected. You just talk to it and it does stuff. But I guess the feedback from you is hold off. This feels a little too Gen 1.
Yeah, and the resolution on the video, you just look at this, you're like, okay, there is nothing that it does that, $100 Kindle doesn't do. Mm-hmm. And that's if you want to get part of that ecosystem. So
except for being able to just shout at the A word.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you can put in a mode for that. But the dots are $30.
Yeah.
You can connect a dot to a Fire Stick. I got the newest Echo though. Because I put the dot in my room because it has a sound out that I can use for my pillow speaker. Mm-hmm. The taller one didn't have that. The new ones do. So
I must admit I think Sonos is doing a smart thing by integrating a bunch of other digital assistants into it, because my one gripe as I continue to use my Echo in the kitchen is that meanwhile in the office or the bedroom or in the garage, you have to pull out your phone like a savage and press buttons and go through menus and type stuff in, and it's
you can get dots for $30 though.
And you have to integrate them to the I already have a bunch of Sonoses is my point though, and so I just want to be able to tell my Sonos what to do.
Yeah, the dots will sense which one you're talking to if they overhear. They talk to each other. But that's exactly the same thing. So I have one here. I have the dot here. I'll probably put one in the kitchen. Probably with the dot to the kitchen just because they're good at knowing where you are. But and I mean, talk about missed opportunity. There was an article about Apple's HomePod and how that started off as they were trying to they just wanted to come up with a really high end speaker because the iPod Hi-Fi was not enough of a lesson for them. Mm-hmm. And then they looked at the they really got caught off guard with the intelligent home assistants Echo and the Google Now and whatnot. And HomePod got delayed. It's not coming out this year. It's getting pushed to next year. No bueno, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the good thing, and this is how it really ties into a Weird Things topic, is that it's clear that that a lot of us are ready to integrate persistent artificial intelligent devices, and that Sonos thing. like that would have sounded like crazy talk 7 years ago. The idea that you would put a persistent always on microphone in your bedroom would be very off-putting. But now I think most people are trusting enough and educated enough that it's like, okay, well, it's always on, but it's not sending that data, and it just waits to be activated and all that stuff. Right. Theoretically, yes, correct.
Well, that's why I won't do a Google Now product. I won't do a Google product because like they take your privacy is the least important thing for them, and that's why they've had so many issues with them because it's not baked in. That's why the Google Now pods, whatever, were sending data across unencrypted, unencrypted voice data and stuff across. Because like, oh yeah, no, we'll fix it. Oh yeah, sorry about that. And then they've had other issues of stuff of late of they just because it's not their selling point. Yeah. And you make money by doing what you do, and they're a marketing company. So
yeah. Do you think that as far as the assistant AI voice service things, do you think that there's like a quote unquote killer feature for those yet? Because the reason I have a Dot that I got about a year ago that I stopped using pretty quickly was because I never found any use for it, and it would activate itself more than I activated it. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you guys use all the time that is like a huge time saver or
just calling out like and maybe this is just being a family man or whatever. There's times the kids are milling around or somebody makes a joke or something, and there are moments where it's really great just to say to your Echo, play some funk music, and then that's all it takes, and then the whole kitchen's alive and everyone's dancing or whatever. But it's like I would never be. Oh wait, hold on, guys, hold on. This is spontaneous because I'm pressing buttons on my phone, and then hey, we have music.
Wait, everybody, come back, do that thing you just did.
Exactly right. And there have been a few emergent moments. Like my favorite, and I think I've talked about this on the show, was being in the middle of cooking stir fry, realizing that I'm tapping out the last of the MSG, and then I'm able to say, hey, device name. We're being so polite.
Oh,
hey, device name. Buy me some more MSG, and then I had a full conversation where she was like, "Well, the MSG you bought before isn't available anymore, but I can get you a pound of MSG for this amount. Is that going to work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go for it." And like that would have been straight up sci-fi 30 years ago. I mean, and now it really is like rote.
Yeah, Bryce, I think the answer is that everybody gets their own. It's like, what would I use a computer for or a phone for? And then you get your own sort of experiences. For me, my Echo, audiobooks every single night. It's how I listen, because I have the sleep timer. You say, go to sleep and, set the sleep timer for 8 minutes, play my audiobook, and it'll just pick up whatever the last audiobook I was listening to on Audible. And what's great about that is after 8 minutes, it fades out. And so I don't have that, wake up 5 hours later in the middle of some Game of Thrones novel and like, oh my God, where am I? That's the number one use. Hey, play music. I use that all the time. Hey, play some music, whatever. Third one is wake me up. It's my alarm clock. I use that to wake me up. And it's a great, you're in the middle, you can be totally asleep and do that. I think saying, calling out Alexa is a lot easier than going, hey, Siri, and then everything else, after that. Because I don't think.
It really, like, we are now in the phase where a half-second difference is a lifetime on those things. Like I won't even bother on using Siri for some things, but I'll always use it. Because you're right. Alexa, I'll say Echo. The Echo is so much faster.
That's interesting because, like, I think about all of those various things that y'all mentioned, and most of that stuff I have. Alarm timers that I'll set, before I go to sleep, or I'll listen to podcasts just on my phone because my podcast app has a sleep timer, or I'm pretty selective about my music, so I usually know I usually am pretty picky about what I want to play. Mm-hmm. But I found the times that I most use something like Siri is when I've got my Bluetooth headphones in, mm-hmm. and it's got the microphone, so I can hold it and like actually give it a command without having to do like a voice trigger.
So I know you've heard me read the Riot Act on this, but I don't know that I've had this discussion with everyone else, and there are a lot of things about Apple products that are curious to me, but there's usually some reason for it. And once I hear the reason, I'm like, well, I wouldn't prefer it that way, but they at least have a reason for doing it. But there's one thing that I've never understood the reason, and I've just been convinced that it's going to fix itself any minute. I ask everybody why it does this, and nobody has an answer. The one time, if you have earbuds in, and you hold down on your earbuds long enough to activate Siri, and then you tell Siri to call someone, more than likely, Andrew Main, where is your phone in that case? If you're where would your phone be if your earbuds are in and you're not using your hands on the phone? You're holding down and asking Siri in your pocket, right? So the part I don't understand is it just automatically assumes, knowing that that's where it is in your pocket, hey, let's unlock the screen so your thigh can just mash all the buttons and mute you halfway through the call. I mean, it's like 1 out of every 7 calls.
Is that still happening? Because I know we talked about this a long time ago.
Yeah. Right now, I can call and it will unlock the phone. Yeah. But it's like, and now we're 10 years into this device. I mean, only a few years into Siri, but it's long enough now that I think, well, they must have a reason, but for the life of me, I can't think of what it is.
What to use? I know to do certain things on there, it has to unlock the phone, but I don't know. I've never had that happen to me because, like, I always put my screen out because early touch screen phones, my thigh would touch them, activate them. So my phone is always screen out for my thigh.
So for you, you've adapted the habit. But again, it's like I just want to know their side. I want to know when they had a meeting and somebody said, "Well, what about this?" And then that's their reason.
I mean,
I don't know.
I'm curious from our chat room, who else has had this problem?
Well, I mean, it's all of us have the problem insofar as if you have Siri dial for you, the screen is unlocked. Now, not the whole phone, but the the 6 buttons, the speakerphone, the mute, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so. If you have to hang up the call or you need to use the phone, I think that. I mean, I could see that the idea is they need to make the phone buttons accessible once you make the call.
Yeah, but but they don't have it's. It just seems like they should.
This is like becoming tech support on a very specific problem.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I was just hoping somebody had like a universal logic thing. Like I don't know. Seems like they could have. That would be an easy.
Let me call my friend Johnny.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Get on that, would you?
Or maybe Tim. Maybe Tim knows.
So we had Black Friday, killer sales, and now we're on Cyber Monday. Tomorrow is going to be Text Tuesday, and then we're going to look up to
Wild Wednesday.
Whatever. Yeah, Wild Wednesday.
Weird Wednesday, where it's like whatever you get, you'll get a weird version of it. Like this iPhone has a tentacle attached to it.
Here's your weird
Throwback
taco from Taco
Thursdays,
Bell.
Fax Fridays, where we fax in our orders. So, meanwhile, I don't know if you know what happened, but made Jeff Bezos the richest man in the world.
I heard about this. He finally clicked over... Who
over 100 billion.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of personal wealth. Was it triggered by any specific like Blue Origin or Amazon thing, or was it just a Black Friday?
A lot of people buying things on Black Friday.
Yeah. Well, and it's I don't know. It's become kind of that. It's actually many people say, "Ooh, it's crass commercialism, it's consumerism, and all that stuff." But also, it's like when you're with family and you're at Thanksgiving, that's the time that you're thinking, like my daughter has experienced a real anxiety about what to get everyone for gifts. Yeah. And so it's like, I don't know, I feel like in some ways it's kind of a service where it's like, hey, we're going to drop, all of us are going to drop our prices. It's just going to be universally a really good time to sit and think and knock out this decision for a month from now.
Yeah, it makes it easier because you solve your Christmas shopping, et cetera, and you don't have to worry about, that. So yeah, Bezos is the richest person in the world, and and I think it's kind of funny, crazy that the richest man in the world has his own private space company, rocket company.
Yep,
he's just in light of we talked about the mystery object that went through our solar system that was confirmed to be coming from an extrasolar trajectory.
Yeah,
and it's kind of long and cylindrical shaped.
You just wonder. Makes one think.
Just a guy asking questions. Just asking questions. Hey, Mr. Bezos, how about spending some money on,
Hey, so I've got one that maybe you could track down, Bryce, because I don't know if Andrew's heard of it. I stumbled across it in my Google News feed recently, but I guess there's a series of explosions happening all over the world, giant thundering booms that people can't explain.
I heard a thing on Drudge. I saw a thing on Drudge. I didn't look it up.
Unexplained explosions or booms or something like that. We'll see if we can find it. But
Keep
basically,
explaining what you know.
like what I read, this is welcome in a new segment called Half Remembered Articles featuring Brian. There was, they weren't in any one geographic location. They were happening all over the world, and they were prominent, and and scientists weren't able to figure out what they were.
So this article says that they are audible booms, not actual visible
Correct,
combustion
yes.
explosions. These
Yeah,
are
maybe
loud,
explosions was the wrong word.
booming sounds. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it says here, something strange is going on. It seems to be happening all over the planet. Reports continue to emerge of booming sounds of mysterious origin echoing from the sky from Colorado and Alabama to the Middle East, United Kingdom, and Australia, according to News Corp Australia. This could be, number one, I don't know, this feels like a perfect Rorschach test of like anything that you can't solve must be, we're creating kind of a fake placeholder category for it, and then it starts to sound like a thing, like ball lightning or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, it's certainly it's just kind of other than we have this. One of them they found out was like an oil tank that exploded, right? Like, okay, we know what that one was.
Well, yeah, I guess it's like the Bermuda Triangle thing, right? Where it's like the moment you explain why one plane went down, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, but what about all the others? And so, and of course, the answer is each one has an explanation.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
It's one of those things where it's once we start reporting these things, it's like I heard a boom earlier today, and could have been, a garbage, dumpster being dropped down or whatever. Once you're aware of it, you start to report these things more. It depends upon the thing you want is. One of the things that helped, like when it came into like discussing, like, was the Earth getting warmer? Because you have this problem with local, temperature stations that were near, heat island effect, airports, places like this. And as metropolises grew, you're like, well, what data is it? But once we had a satellite record going from the 70s on forward, we could say, oh yeah, we can see a temperature increased, and we can argue with what's causing that. But it was hard to dispute that, the temperature wasn't going up once you had satellite data. And so you want that kind of source here. Where you want, is there seismic, is there some sort of data that points that we have to look at it? If you had, okay.
Oh, I was just going to say, continue your thought.
My, one of the things that you can, is a possible explanation that you will not get honest answers about is when they test military aircraft.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. Like sonic boom seems like a likely culprit. Especially, picture it's an overcast day. There's no way you're going to see it, and nobody's going to admit to it. So it's like there's just a boom, and it'll be very likely in unusual locations because they're not going to want to, test it out right where everyone could see it.
I have a friend whose father was a guy that put together Hynek, who put together the Project Blue Book, and they left with a lot of unanswered questions about this sort of stuff, and his father's given a lot of access to things and all this, and I think my suspicion is that a lot of that stuff, observational stuff, was military aircraft, but the Air Force is not going to say, oh, yeah, no, we were testing the SR-72. We were testing. They're not going to say that. They're going to say anything.
Well, I remember in the late 90s, a bunch of documents from Project Blue Book got declassified, and so much of it was just people were doing really weird stuff during the Cold War just to test it out. Like, we flew around and we threw a bunch of dummies out the back of a plane to see how their bodies looked when they landed. It's like, I have no doubt that people found all kinds of weird stuff during that time.
Yeah. And like you have right now, we have a new stealth bomber that's being worked on. We have the SR-72, and there are scores of unmanned faster than sound traveling craft. And these things too, it's like we tend to think of like drones as being small, but when you actually see the size, you ever see the size of a Predator drone?
The ones that they use in the military.
The
go
Predators,
look
the
at
ones that are
Predators
constantly
and go
circling.
supersonic, but
Yeah.
you go look
Those
at the
are
size of this thing, and it's bigger than a Cessna. This thing is big, and so you have things that are really fast, that are that have jet propelled whatever and stuff. So who knows? Who knows what we're testing there? And it's funny because we're like, oh, it's not this, like it's not anything we have. How would you know? That was, I've had those discussions with people before where they, claiming like we're talking about like this, the status of the nuclear stockpile. I'm like, oh, I'm an expert and I know. Like, if you know that level of information, you can't get out there and tell us what you know.
Right.
And it's just that, not to say that therefore as a skeptic, yeah, it must be this, but it's like you got to entertain the possibility. A lot of the military stuff is way out there.
This Daily Mail article about the booms has a list of possible explanations. Just real quick, 1 to 10. How likely do you think it could be these 7 things? Number 1, sonic booms.
10 out of 10. Definitely, at least some of them have to be sonic booms, right?
Okay.
In fact, yeah.
I mean, statistically,
Yeah,
even.
yeah. I mean, we know sonic booms happen. We know people have heard them and not known what they were. Therefore, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Number 2, military exercises. We just spent a whole 10 minutes on saying why that's.
Oh no, but we didn't talk about actual detonations, whether there be underground detonations, testing munitions, and all that stuff.
Well, that rolls into number 3, controlled explosions.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I'd say so far 10 on all of these.
Number 4, unusual weather. Many loud noises link back to unusual weather events such as electrical storms or thunderstorms.
This is one that I think people are going to want to. Anyone who experiences one of these loud booms, you're going to suggest, let's say you eliminate the first 3. And then you say, well, it might be unusual weather. They're going to immediately dismiss it out of hand, saying, that sky was crystal blue, and I heard a boom. There's no way there was a thunderclap. There's no way it was a weather-related explosion.
Right.
But...
Which is not even right.
Well, and keep in mind, like...
thunder and stormy,
well, and like
thundery.
Living in a suburban neighborhood, there have been times that I've looked up and the entire sky appeared to be blue just because, the angle of view that you're able to have, is where there have been rolling thunderstorm fronts coming in that are just obscured by the row of houses.
Unless you're in a hot air balloon, you really don't get a full sense of what the weather and the sky around you
Correct.
is.
And then, and of course, as we've talked before, how quickly your memory massages everything and just insists, like, I swear I looked all the way, there's not one cloud in the sky, could not have been weather. And so I'm gonna say that one should be an 8. Okay. But most people will want to call it a 4 if they've experienced a boom.
Andrew, how likely do you think meteors are a part of it? Large meteors passing above Earth often produce shockwaves that can be heard as a sonic boom.
Yeah, it's the size and brightness. I mean, those are things that we would be, we know when we have pretty well-known showers, and you'd be able to probably time them to some sort of signs of brightness or whatever. So again, it can be this, and this, and now we're just more attuned to that. I'm still, we have, like I said, there is, in our chat room, somebody said, well, the B-21's not produced it. Agreed, but the B-2 is, and we keep doing block variants on the B-2 bomber, and there's other stuff out there. There's things that's experimental stuff, not things that are like the B-21 Raider is something that's going to be moved into a production sort of thing, but there's a lot of stuff you do, and you take, we take this fuselage, we test this engine, we do this mount here. I don't know. Well, and we're working on...
Let's go through the rest of these 7 here.
Okay,
so
sure.
to the question of meteors, how often, how on a scale of 1 to 10 do you think that's a culprit?
Sounds pretty low, maybe, for you?
I would say low.
Yeah, okay. Number 6, sound amplified from aircraft. Some have suggested that the sound was due to inversion, a phenomenon that occurs when a layer of warm air sits over a layer of cooler air, magnifying the sound of an aircraft miles away.
Dude, I believe that. In fact, one of the folks in the chat just pointed, Dead Polymers in the chat says, as a former sonar tech, I could tell you sound travels a ridiculous distance through air and water in certain situations.
Yeah, which could amplify unusual weather further away as well.
Yeah.
Remember Project Mogul?
What was that one?
Mm-mm.
That was the whole Roswell, right? The Roswell, UFO thing?
Oh, yeah.
That was a balloon train, and what that was designed was they had microphones on there that were designed to listen to. They figured if you go high enough up, you can hear the sound of explosions in the Soviet Union, because what'll happen is that sound travels through that layer, and that's in the ocean. There's that layer where sound travels, and the same thing in the atmosphere. And that was one of the purported purposes of Mogul, was to try to listen in on Soviet nuclear testing.
Oh wow, that's a super clever idea.
And then when it crashed, they got these Mylar balloons, which were high tech at the time. And then people are like, it's UFOs. The Air Force didn't want to, like, no, this is a secret way we listen to the Russians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
of course we're not going to talk about it.
UFOs. Got it.
Well, and that's one of the things that people didn't think through during a lot of the height of the UFO hysteria, is that there might be a very good logical reason why the government would encourage you to believe it's little green men.
I'll give you another one. Is there are accounts, and I actually use this as a basis for one of my a little short story in the Jessica Blackwood universe. Is the Soviets were testing our perimeter defenses, right? So there have been accounts that they would actually try to do runs of sending aircraft all the way up like the Tennessee Valley, try to run as far as they could. You kind of think, they never violated our airspace. We flew over them with spycraft, why wouldn't they try to test our defenses? You take, strip down something that clearly it is, but you think you can go pass it through as a commercial airplane flight.
Yeah. That's one of those things when you have two participants in a game of chess, neither of which necessarily even knows the rules of the game, because they don't know what the other player's capacity is. You got to do a lot of nutty stuff just to get any kind of intel on what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
Like when you hear about like there was a while ago, like the Chinese detained like one of our aircraft or something like this, right? And we said, we were well within, our international waters. The Chinese said we weren't, whatever. I don't know who I believe us a little bit more than them,
but it's still.
But
up in the
I
air,
know that we will absolutely say, we were clearly international waters. Oh, we were lost. Oh, we were this or whatever. And that stuff happens. But also, it's what you say when, they have an installation there. We want to try to get a read on their radar tracking stuff. So we're going to try to dip in.
Well, and then keep in mind from their perspective, let's say we were in international waters and we weren't violating anything, but they've got the ship or they've got the aircraft, and it just seems like no. Let's firmly say that they were in our space. Let's give ourselves a few days to fight. That way, we get a chance to check out all these wires and figure out, take lots of photos and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was number 7 on the list?
Well, number 7 very helpfully could be aliens. Some conspiracy theorists claim that the mysterious booms are noises created by aliens, although there is no evidence to support this. On a scale of 1 to 10,
I'm giving them a 1. A 1.1.
A 1 point. Oh wow, okay.
I mean, I'm
almost one of these 64 booms might have been an alien.
Almost 1. Yeah.
Andrew, what do you think?
Can I give it a 0.00001?
Okay.
If you're going to be rude about it. The alien's up there crying. He's like, guys, I came down to your planet. I boomed as loud as I could. In my mind, I was going to come in. There was going to be a big boom, and everyone's going to look up and be like, it's an alien. And now I'm going
to give you a science fiction scenario, okay? Let's say it's like 1925. We're at like Wardcliff or whatever, like Tesla's secret facility is, or is his radio facility there, and he's got this crazy new quantum, process, Bose-Einstein condensate antenna, whatever, and we start hearing, radio waves of a different president, different stuff going on, okay, and we're like, "Ooh, is this an alternate version of Earth that we're hearing?" And like, well, yeah. And like, well, we need to contact them. Well, if I put a lot of voltage through this, I can create a lightning boom here, and it'll create a lightning blast over there, but they may not see the light.
Isn't that that sounds an awful lot like the theory of communication between different universes with gravity pulses, right? Isn't that the idea? Is that the gravity in one brain, BRANE, can find the other?
Slightly
Yeah, there's like a dent, and there's a place where we think our universe would be dented. Like one way of that you could in a sci-fi sort of scenario, but what if you had this this multi-worlds was true or other dimensional or something, or even it's some, what if it's dark matter aliens, that are talking to us? And there's like one of the things I love is like lightning is still a really weird phenomenon. And now we know that lightning blasts give off antimatter particles. There's more antimatter present in our atmosphere than we think there should be.
Really?
That's crazy.
Wow.
Lightning, antimatter.
Okay. Yeah, so I would imagine, certainly I can understand lightning being a volatile enough process that that it causes antimatter. But in my mind, I would imagine the antimatter immediately annihilates against all the matter of the atmosphere. But now I want to play with the idea of what if it has just an unbelievably lucky drift dodging all of the air molecules.
So, there's a lightning with a chance of antimatter, which talks about what happens in a lightning blast and the photonuclear reaction giving off neutrino, the beta decay giving off a positron, which then strikes a neutron, creates annihilation, has an annihilation effect. And then, just it's weird. And like one of the premises that I'm exploring in the next Station Breaker novel, book 3, is just a little bit getting into the upper atmosphere science and physics. Because there is an upper atmosphere, there is very cool things that take place, phenomenon like we call them trolls and sprites and things like, when you see the Northern Lights, that's an example of the sort of weird stuff that can happen. That's because of the high energy going across there. But there's other stuff that takes place there. We see lightning down here, but up above, there's weird stuff that we don't have observational platforms to observe it, and it's very way up in the distance and stuff, but so much cool stuff.
So is there any breakthrough associated with the idea of like lightning creating antimatter within our atmosphere, or is that something where it resolves itself immediately because it's in an atmosphere of oxygen?
Yeah, I would imagine whatever antimatter
immediately annihilates.
Yeah.
Itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, and you might think like, if only we could harvest the antimatter from the lightning. But if that happens, then, why not just harness the energy of the lightning bolt or,
Well, here's the thing about lightning is that we say, if I say we don't know what causes lightning, people are like, oh, no, it's because you have this layer here, this layer here. It's like those are the conditions where lightning occurs. And that's different than saying that creates it. And there is cosmic ray theory. And you ever look at a cloud chamber?
I think so. If I know what you're speaking
That's
of.
where, like, you go to the Science Museum and it's like a vapor of like alcohol, and you watch the little particle. You're watching highly energetic atomic, nuclear particles, cosmic rays.
I guess I haven't
through
been.
there.
No,
and you see how much energy one of those little things has as it flies through a little cloud chamber, and you think about when you're in space and you're getting pelted with those and we're getting pelted by cosmic rays right now, but our body has a certain ability to heal its stuff. And this is an experiment you can do, you see in a cloud chamber. So that's one particle.
Wait,
creating
say those words
lines.
again. This is, and by the way, for the audio listeners, I'm looking at what looks like a screensaver of, imagine it's dark and a juggler is really quickly whipping around a glow stick or a laser, just hither and yon all over the place.
There are these lines of lightness being created and sort of expiring over time pretty quickly. It almost looks like debris falling into water, but the debris disappears.
Yeah, imagine you had a black pond and you were only seeing, imagine above it somebody was spraying a can of silly string, and you watched the silly string, and you only saw the parts where the silly string hit the surface of the water. So it would be like spaghetti noodles, this way, that way, and all around.
So each of these is one particle moving through this
it's an electron or a positron shooting through there. Or it can be an alpha particle, which is 2 protons and a neutron. Okay.
And so
similar to like helium-4. I'm pulling this from Wikipedia, make sure I get but helium to like a helium-4. So you're looking at a nucleus, or it can be, you can get, the ones we're looking at are probably that. But anyhow, so you're looking at a, one particle, either the nucleus of like helium, similar to helium-4, or you're looking at an, electron or a positron just flying through there. Now that's going right now. So this is super saturated alcohol. So it's a vapor. So that's what allows us to see this. Right now, these are going through us.
Wow.
Now, when you're in space, you get a lot more of them.
That was one of the most fascinating stories I heard in some interview from somebody who was aboard the Mir space station. He was zipped up, laying to bed, tilted his head to the left. I think I mentioned this on the show. And all of a sudden saw these flashing lights, and then looked to the right and they vanished. And then looked to the left and saw flashing lights with his eyes closed. And he realized that they were being bombarded with cosmic rays, and that when he turned his head the right way, it was exactly hitting the light receptors through his closed eyes in his eyes. And it's like that's happening all the time, whether he sees it or not, that entire time.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So if you think about, like, when we talk about lightning, things like this, again, we know the conditions, but there is the possibility that it could be cosmically triggered. You know, you could have the conditions for creating it. I mean, you could have the triggers, but you don't have the right conditions for that. Some theories are that it could be just tectonic and other sort of activity going place deep down, and it wells up. It's spooky. You know, we talk about, like, oh, the ancients, they didn't know what caused they didn't know what rain and lightning was. I'm going to tell you right now, we don't know what lightning is for sure. We can test it, we can do things. Rain, we're just now discovering, we've talked about this before, how certain microbes can influence the creation of rain by leaving, they can create like ecosystems where they change their polarity, they leave crops, they go up into the atmosphere, and because they have a protein surface where water molecules will go in there and bind, and it'll nucleate, creating ice that forms rain. This is a global phenomenon we know next to nothing about. It affects the hydrological cycle. So, yeah, we're still going.
I had no idea we didn't know that much about lightning. I kind of assumed I only knew a basic understanding of something that
turns out it
posse and magnets, but
turned out it was Thor all along. Zeus is angry.
And again, we know more. We know way more than we do before, but there's still these, and we can create things and but then you get ball lightning and other sorts of phenomenon that are just, it's tricky because it takes so much energy to replicate these things.
That's one of those wonderful things about science and the nature of the universe is everything is it's literally a fractal, but from an information standpoint, it's a fractal. It's like you get it, like, no, I get it. It's like the clouds are angry and they shoot fire down. And then you look a little closer and it's in more accurate, like, well, no, high pressure, low pressure, positive, negative, charge. And then you're looking even closer, like, well, no, I guess it's a little more complicated than that. And that's amazing.
What's really amazing is this show happens every week.
Dude, by the way, let me tell you guys a dark tale.
It didn't used to be this way.
It used to be the moment anybody had some reason to not go, the other two would be like, we'll do it next week. And there was a hot sporadic minute where it was like once a month or so. And we were really at risk of pod fading. But then we launched a Patreon, and every dollar that you guys pledge makes a huge difference in making sure we show up every single week. And we can't thank the nearly 400 of you guys keeping us loud, live, and independent.
Yeah, and it's because of you guys. When Justin has to go on vacation and doesn't want to be on the show, we can still do one.
And, if it wasn't for us giving you our half-assed takes on news stories that we haven't really read, you'd be forced to do individual research, look up factual sources,
and reliable
information. And you'd be a lot more better informed, but not as entertained.
See, this
You're
guy
going
gets
from
it.
unknown unknowns
to known unknowns. Right, and that's thanks to the Patreons at patreon.com/weird things. By the way, you also get other benefits. I think the secret hidden gem of this entire program is we do a second program after this called After Things, where we talk about the real behind-the-scenes numbers and what it takes to make it as an independent creative in the 21st century. You may or may not think someone out there right now has been thinking forever, oh, I ought to get that one too. And you haven't done it. You know why? Because you wouldn't have to if you went to patreon.com/weird things. You'd get your own RSS feed, and you'd get the two of them side by side in one big rock block.
And you get After Things about a day or so before anybody else does on the public feed. So if you really want it, get in on it early. And check it out, patreon.com/weird things.
Awesome. Hey, look at this. What a wonderful comment in the chat room. Cornlips44 says, I very recently found you guys, but I'm addicted already, so thank you for the patrons.
Yeah. We'll wait until next week to do the Journey Quest. We can get Justin.
I mean, unless there's a side quest. Unless Bryce is still running around that hospital.
I don't have a good one, but did you see the person that actually made the tapes?
No. Oh, I saw that somebody is hand assembling all.
Someone put put the Journey Quest on cassette tape.
Yes, individually recording them all as a straight-through adventure, which I'm sure has to be the most. We should release it as the world's worst audiobook.
Like a 12-hour unlistenable block where every 20 minutes they forget what the hell just happened.
Oh my God, I would love that. It would be like the Diamond Club book of Audible.
We have fans. There are people there. Every time I mention a thing on Twitter, oh, it's a little dumb thing I do, and people go, oh, it's my favorite thing you guys do.
Oh, no. Well, and by the way, I should be very, very clear. What I mean is, what tickles me is the idea of somebody buying the book, not having any idea who we are or what this is, just being all like, this is a weird book.
Yeah.
Not a lot of structure to this, you know.
So what else you got, Mr. Main?
So a little kind of interesting little story here, another Amazon story.
Oh.
And that is that Amazon unveiled a couple new services for AWS. One is for doing video stuff, all that. Another one is that they've unveiled Sumerian, which is their super easy to use tool for creating 3D. In Sumerian, that's it.
It's like I don't know if I know ancient Sumerian was a language. I don't know if it's still one today.
Yeah, that's a weird thing.
They'd be like,
make the language your language an actual language.
Exactly. It's like it's now easier to talk than ever with our new product, Sanskrit. All you have to do is learn Sanskrit.
Well, it's like it's an ancient language too, so it's very widely
Arcane.
forgotten.
Yeah.
So Sumerian is a tool that's supposed to be very easy. You don't even really need to be a coder to use. You can create your 3D graphics right then and there. Your 3D, very easy to do. You have a narrator if you want to do presentations. It's not like a high-end thing like Unity or something like that yet, but it can import different assets and stuff. And it's cloud-based, and then it exports it. It'll work on an iPhone. It'll work on Android. It'll work on a web browser. It'll work on all these other different tools. And so the goal is Bryce is now doing a demo of it, and I can see this kind of cool little room where you're looking at objects, and it's like you're like, okay.
I should point out that all Bryce had to do was click, and this is in a browser,
this
and
is an in-browser link. It's some like .scene file, but it took a minute to load up. But it's this funny thing where like I don't know if it's a function of it being because we're viewing it through a browser or because this is an early preview for Sumerian. But seeing this it makes me feel like the fidelity has jumped back to like
1990
CG,
yeah.
right? Just like some of the shaders are a little mismatching, but it's pretty cool. And like to do this in a browser on this computer, which is up mid-tier nowadays, is
well, again,
impressive.
remember, you are looking at the WebVR format, and so to do real time, and you're having to do that on your end, sort of thing. So, if you export it presumably into an iOS or an Android format, you probably get a lot better, resolution and stuff. The idea is one place to create it, like when you use Unity or Unreal, how you can export it to all these sorts of different, platforms. This is designed like if you use Amazon Web Services, like I do, which is the real reason why Bezos is worth $100 billion, because it's kind of like the web runs on Amazon servers. Mm-hmm. It's very, very useful because it's just, I create this thing online. Now I connect it to my website, or I connect it to this other function in an app, and now it gets pushed out everywhere. I don't need to add any servers. I don't have to run anything on my local system, etc. I guess what got me excited about this was like you're looking at building your web thing entirely in the cloud. When you talk about building. Right now, if you want to do a lot of web stuff or VR stuff, whatever, you build it as a game or an app that you download onto a device. Mm-hmm. Here, it's cloud served, cloud whatever, and it could be pushed onto devices through apps or whatever. But the idea is if you want to create your own Second Life, if you want to create your own large virtual environment, instead of running a bunch of Unity servers or whatever, which is kind of what I guess in the kind of long-term thing they're going to be competing with, is you do this, and it's super cheap and easy to scale.
And it's the scaling that really boggles my mind. The fact that everything from storage to processing power to the fact that everything can be upscaled or whatever. And we've talked about this before in the Peter Diamandis book, Bold. He explained that you build a business based on where things are going to be in 5, 10, however many years. And Google Part of the reason it rose to prominence is because it built its business on the assumption that the cost of storage would eventually become basically free. So they were like, we're going to build our platform just imagining what if storage was free. And granted, it's an ever-shifting curve or whatever. And likewise, now with Amazon Web Services,
computational power.
Correct. You have to assume that that processing power is infinite and free. And then what would you do? What business would you build in that case?
Yeah, looking at like their benefits listed here on the Sumerian website, like the very first thing, or one of the top things on here above, runs on multiple platforms, is lifelike characters. And in some of these screenshots, it looks like you can kind of set up
hosts, as they call them.
Yeah, like have a character that can speak multiple languages, various languages, voice, because we did talk about how Amazon has a voice dictation.
It plugs in, it plugs into Amazon Polly, which is the voice thing that does the different stuff. So then you start plugging in these different voice recognition and these voice services and stuff. So this is right now, if you wanted to make a tutorial on how to run things or how to do stuff, it's replacing the corporate training video right now. That's right. Phase one.
Well, and think about this. You probably already have the script tree figured out for everything, and you only need to do it in English, because then I'm sure you can upload it, have it translated to all different voices and all different languages, and then all different skins and whatever, and everything scales.
Or if the AWS is complex enough, you wouldn't need to translate anything. Someone could go in and say, "Oh, I need this in Polish."
Oh, right. That's what I mean. Yeah. Is like that is labor. I mean, 10, 20 years ago, you would need a team. You would need somebody who knew Polish to translate all this and make sure. And then now we have modules for all that stuff.
Wow,
that's
so
incredible.
There's a video. Click to if you go to the hosts, and there's a video where you can watch where they just take a script and create a video host. So it's like if you go to, I'm on Sumerian features and go to hosts.
Okay, give me.
And again, there are people who go like, "Oh, well, I can already do this and these other things." Like, yes, you can. The simplicity in making this a super scalable thing.
Sumerian lets you create and run virtual reality and augmented reality applications.
Still sounds a little like 90s.
You can use it to build almost any kind of AR or VR app.
But again, this is now the basement. This is now the minimum you can expect from everything, and that was top of the line.
And it's also doing lip sync, rudimentary, but it's doing lip sync on this 3D character.
Man, I had this thought, must have been 15 years ago. I was like, I was talking to a chatbot, and I was like, well, if a chatbot can exist, and I also knew enough about, 3D rendering to know that lip syncing existed, and that voice simulations existed, and that bone structures existed. And then I was just like, it's just a matter of time until someone puts it all together. Like, I'm having this flash moment to 15 years ago when I just imagined, like, seems like all of this could be tied together and created on the fly. Yeah. And here we are.
That's all for now. I hope you give Sumerian a try.
Yeah, so it can work with Lex, which is their whole building the chatbot service, et cetera. Like you're talking, that's the kind of cool, interesting thing is when you want to build those futuristic virtual assistants that feel like you're talking to a person. Now, one developer can tie all these things in together without having to string together a bunch of different resources, which is cool but creepy, and you're going to see more and more.
Now, I saw that this is in VR, but they also list AR. Is that but all the things that we've seen so far are total VR immersion. Is AR an element of this, Andrew?
I would imagine like you would, let's say any of those scenes that we just saw in VR, you would just say for AR, remove the walls and paint whatever reality is behind it, and then you would have essentially you've already done the work. You're just setting the rules different on there.
Yeah, what Brian said.
And welcome to Just Guessing. Just Guessing. That's the name of the podcast.
It's like it supports ARKit, so you can, and ARCore, which is ARCore is coming soon, which is Google. So you can export these things presumably into. Those are ARKit is Apple's AR system, which is fantastic, and ARCore is Google's, which will work all across Android. So the answer is yes. You'd be able to have these hosts appear and do the stuff there. And again, and Unity's not hard to use either. Unity's, Unity and Unreal, they've got great tutorials. It's accessible. Anybody who has, if you're functionally literate, you can use those systems to build stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Man.
but I think this is a big leap forward as far as making it. It's just it's the way you contextualize stuff. It's the way you say, oh, instead of me buying a server and having to run it there or paying someone to host a server, what if I just buy a virtual server and then I can scale? And people are like, okay. Instead of like Salesforce.com was selling this radical idea of what if software was a service? What if instead of buying it, installing on your systems, you just logged into the web browser and used these tools? Nah, companies want to buy it. They want to own it. They want to know they have it.
Yeah,
Well,
man, I'll tell you what, and I howled louder than most when Adobe started doing their Adobe Air. What is it?
Air was their own like programming.
No, I guess I get the service, Adobe Cloud.
Creative Cloud.
Creative Cloud. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, like and you're like, no, I want to buy, and by buy I mean pirate Photoshop, and then feel like I own it, and then. But instead, it's like, no, $50 a month, you get everything. It's always up to date. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. It was when they were doing that. It was they got the pricing right. They got the pricing really right. I subscribe. I got the pricing right because they keep adding features. Because I'm always at the point where like, you know what, I could go to Pixelmator or I could go use one of these other tools, but Adobe like have you used like Adobe's like the new fill tools now?
The content aware fill and
the content aware fill.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
In other words, devil magic, where it imagines.
You're like, ooh.
Yeah, and if you've not seen it, it's been around for a while, but it's like you could just take a tree and you're like, lose that tree, and then it just paints in everything accurately behind that tree, or how you would imagine based on what's around.
Though I will say, because we use Adobe here for all of our production stuff, and I'm of the mindset that I don't like to upgrade ever. I was on a apparently year-old build of Premiere for a very long time, and when I upgraded, a bunch of stuff changed, and I couldn't open my old files without making new versions of those files. Not to mention, I hear Brant every month talk about some new foible with an Adobe update.
Man, they moved the Brownian motion button to somewhere else.
Well, it's more like huge memory leaks that make his computer crash every time.
Oh, geez.
And
that's no bueno.
So, like, I could see in a certain world being like, it would probably make more monetary sense for me to buy a set version of Premiere or After Effects or Photoshop and have it for a set amount of time, for however long I'm going to use it, because I really don't want to update, and it's got all these great features already. But even then, you're getting into not just buying one program, but buying multiple programs, and that's a huge upfront cost. And yeah, I don't know. I think overall, Creative Cloud's a good idea, but this is from someone who's on Windows 8.1. I don't want to upgrade anything.
It comes down to, again, figuring out like how much those features are worth if you want to use it or not. And I was one of these people I remember I had a friend years ago. I mean, we're talking like 15 years ago. Oh, what if Microsoft goes to a subscription? I'm like, I will use another word processor because it ain't worth a subscription, and like, oh, what about your video editor? I'm like, it depends. If the features are there, and then what I've seen now is like, I don't do the Microsoft subscription because to be able to pay a monthly fee to use Word, which I hate using, doesn't sound like fun to me, but. And I think Google Docs is so much what I want to use for that.
Yeah. Hey, do you guys want to talk picks?
Yeah, let's talk picks.
I've got a pick.
All right.
I started watching this last week, and I finished what was out there, and it is Marvel's Runaways on Hulu.
Oh, and is it good?
It's very good. I think that there are 3 episodes out now, so it's kind of like I don't know if it's gonna have the Marvel thing in the bad
by the way,
half.
I just had one of those moments where I realized that the information that you just finished watching the entire series gave me no valid information on whether or not it was good or not.
Well, I say that because there was only 3 episodes out.
Okay.
When it premiered, because it just premiered. But it's I don't know the comic lineage of it at all. But it's a bunch of they're doing this really weird, not weird, but they're doing a very specific sort of storytelling where they're like all these kids clearly have a history with each other, and they were together for something, but no one wants to say that they were a superhero team in the past. But they're acting like they used to be a superhero team in the past, and now they're.
These are the adults or the kids?
These are the kids.
Got it. Okay.
And at the end of episode 1, it sets up this weird dynamic between the kids and the parents of what everybody's up to. So 3 episodes in, and it's playing heavily into the mystery factor, where I think in some of the promo stuff, at least from what I heard, it looked more like a horror sort of show, but it really is so far a action mystery. So I really dig it. That's Runaways on Hulu.
I got a pick.
Okay.
That everyone and their brother was telling me I should finally watch. And I finally watched it. And I'm about 3-4 episodes in, and I'm in love with the Hulu original Future Man.
Oh, really?
Oh, my God. It is the funniest comedy I've seen in a very long time.
I never put it together, but it seems like now I'm thinking about it, it is the perfect show for you.
It's if you like, you know what it is? It's the production quality of the Film Riot shorts. Although at times the Film Riot shorts look better.
Look a little better, yeah.
But it's filled with really talented. And it's funny because most of the people pitching it were like, oh man, you like Future Man. It's like sci-fi, but funny. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I finally watched it. I'm like, no, this is just a great comedy that happens to be about the tropes of a science fiction, time traveling,
and so
rule-bending world.
It's like a kind of schlubby guy, in a dead-end job who lasts starfighters his way into having people from the future.
Correct. And every episode, they call out the premise of what's going on. So it's like they get to that part of the script every episode because like they do
because they do that twice in the first one.
Correct.
And I'm like, are they
okay? And then newsflash, they travel back in time and they change something, and in the future, they go back to the present, and a bunch of things are different. And every time he notices something different, you hear that Back to the Future. And then he says, "Hey man, did you ever see Back to the Future?" And then he's talking about it and then they deconstruct his actual experience. He's acting like he's talking about in the theoretical with a random person, saying like, "Man, that's really messed up," because Marty McFly would have to fake his way through every conversation because he would have literally no idea who he's met or what their relationships are with anyone. And then that being the accurate description of what he was going through at that exact moment. Yeah. It's so self-referential. It's so much fun. It's so transgressive in all these great tropes. It's great, man. I loved it, and I can't wait to watch the rest of it.
So, Hulu again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no, I'm like, so Hulu's got Handmaid's Tale, Future Man, Runaways, and, I remember, I think that's kind of exciting because, like, Hulu was always sort of like, it was going to be cool. And then you go there and like, we're going to put, if you want to pay for Hulu, we really want to show you commercials, which they changed. But that was like, sure. Well, so why am I going to Hulu? And then over time it became this sort of, maybe it has it, maybe it doesn't have it. But now that they're getting really into originals, I haven't found as much on Amazon Prime originals that I've been as into as I have like on like Netflix.
I always feel like every time I look through the Amazon Prime originals, it's always like, action-y movie or period drama or what is his name? Not Mario Batali, the Bam guy. He's
Nightcrawler.
Emerald.
Got it. Yeah.
You know what's funny is I thought, wait, is he talking about the cook? And then you were.
But like the Amazon has a very weird thematics in just their slate of programming so far.
Also, they're doing a big rehaul. We talked about this before. That's why they're buying Lord of the Rings. They're doing Ringworld I think that they had a very scientific sort of process they were trying to do. Like, first we'll have people rate scripts, then we'll choose the scripts with the best reviews, and then we'll do table read-throughs with actors, read-throughs with actors reading these things out, and then we'll choose the ones that are the best there, and then we'll take. And it's like. It's like a programmer who does not get how movies or books or things like, like I'm going to write a book and then I'm going to write 2 possible different chapters for chapter 2 and I will choose the one that people like the most and then I'll go write and it's like you got to be there's formulas and things like this, but you got to take risks and you got to be a competent narrator.
And every part of that is a failure point where someone can come in and say, well, let's just do the thing, the mainstream thing, and make it a detective show.
Yeah.
One last thing on Future Man. The cast has been fantastic. So many faces that you half remember from other projects. What's his name? That's why I have to open the IMDb here. Keith David, the guy, he was in They Live, and he plays the president on Rick and Morty, and Ed Begley Jr. is hilarious. Yes,
yeah, he's great.
And he's just so insane. Haley Joel Osment plays a colossal asshat. He's great. Highly recommended. Give it a try. Filthy as hell.
Yeah,
the casual F-bomb dropping. It feels very much like you're listening to like a Comedy Bang Bang podcast or something. Just every other word is F word.
Well, this is Judd Apatow joint.
No. Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen.
Excuse me. Cool. Andrew, you got a pick?
I have a pick.
Cool.
My pick's actually an album. I never recommend music stuff. And this was one of these things where I was on Drudge Report and he mentioned like this link to this band. I'm like, well, this Matt Drudge doesn't make a lot of music picks. This is going to be interesting. And I read about this band. I'm like, oh, this sounds kind of cool. Let me get their album. I got there. I'm like, oh, I dig this. Totally get it. Greta Van Fleet. Have you heard them?
No.
Michigan band. They're all like 18, 19, 20 years old. Very Zeppelin sounding. Very, very, very Zeppelin sounding. You listen to this, and that's kind of like why I like it, because I'm a big...
This is their
it does.
highway tune?
Yeah, and this is a current band, right?
Yep.
We were talking about this last night, Bonnie and I, that my biggest gripe with Pandora is that you give it a seed song, let's say Led Zeppelin, and it's like, oh, you must want Led Zeppelin sounding stuff all from the late 1960s, because that's where that one's from. Yeah. And it's like, no, what I want to tell you is I like Led Zeppelin, and I want new stuff that sounds like Led Zeppelin. And I wish it did a better job of making that leap and turning me on to stuff like this.
Well, they've already popped a bit. They were in iTunes, like artist of the week or whatever, and they've done, I think they've been into some soundtrack stuff and all that. But they're like 18, 19, 20 years old. You listen to them and you're like, one of the things I loved about Zeppelin was, they were influenced by a lot of different things. We'll just put it at that. But and I have this thing, like, I made a remark once. I was at a mall and I saw a kid wearing a Led Zeppelin t-shirt and I said, look at this kid wearing a Led Zeppelin. And his friend's like, oh, they just got a Hot Topic. They don't even know what it is. I'm like, I bet you they know those albums better than you and I do. Okay. I bet you these kids these days, I bet you their musicology is greater than ours is.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and that's you see this band and you're like, they're effing great. They're great. And they're 20, 18, 19, 20 years old. Yeah. Where are they going to be in 10 years when they're still young? So.
Very cool. And it looks like the current album is From the Fires, if you're looking for that.
Yeah, it's their EP, so that they're actively touring. So Greta Van Fleet, they took their name they're from Michigan. There was a woman there who played the dulcimer called Gretna Van Fleet, and they loved the sound of the name, and they used it with her permission. They created Greta Van Fleet, which is a very rock and roll way to call your band. So,
but it's also very millennial to get permission.
Yeah, exactly. They had her like open for them at one point or something too.
Oh,
wow. So. So yeah, there again, I like you say, Brian, like there are genres of music that it's nice to see somebody go back and go do. I think the quality of music today is fantastic. If you just listen to pop stuff and the formula-driven stuff, which can be quite good, like I think Taylor Swift is talented. I think she does some neat stuff, and I think people dismiss that. I'm like, no, it does what it needs, and you listen to her passion for what she does. But there's a lot of alternative stuff out there that is just. I think there are more people getting into music than there were before, and because of the exposure to listen to stuff, it's amazing.
Well, and I think we also, I would like to believe this. I might be believing this just because I'm getting old, but I had hoped ever since I was in my 20s that we've reached a level of audio production where, because it used to be from the 1900s to the 1970s-ish, every decade you could hear instantly the quality, correct, and old music sounded old. It sounded like your parents' music. It sounded old. Whereas nowadays, I feel like we've hit this. It's as good as the best ears can hear. Yeah. Everything recorded for the last 30 years, basically, and so we live. It seems like we live in a more postmodern society, so like we get postmodern jukebox where it's like they take current stuff and then make it sound like old stuff. And nowadays,
I think you're also finding nowadays more intricacy in production, not outside of the actual fidelity, but in things like songwriting and use of instruments and arrangement.
Yeah.
Especially like it's really prominent in electronic music where there are new sounds and all sorts of different levels of sophistication being put into these wholly digital works. You're seeing more and more of that come through in kind of a newer sort of way.
You go look at, like, you go to, let's say I'm using the Apple Store, right? And then you go over to the section there and you look what they have for music and stuff and the production stuff. And again, there's way better, way richer. I get that, but you can put together a great home recording kit for about $1,000 using an iPad or an iPhone or whatever that will give you, exceptional quality. Again, if you want to go much higher end, which better mics and stuff like this, yes, and. But what you can do in the home for $1,000 that would have cost tens of thousands of dollars years ago is incredible.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through, like, right now, like a lot of the iRig and, a lot of the microphone stuff and all that. And then, like, once when you put on a really good pair of earphones and you listen, somebody explains to you and you listen to the differences, you can go, oh, okay, I get this difference between this microphone and that. I get how it's picking that up. But you want to get your stuff out there, and considering, how a lot of people just listen to stuff, using, tiny little speakers and stuff,
Yeah.
It's an amazing time to be a creative, which is an amazing segue for what we'll do next, which is we're going to end this now and go to After Things. Unless we have any more picks, any more last minute picks.
I was just thinking that
I need to know how it's been.
It's been, how's it been?
How it is.
I feel it's been complete. You would think because are we missing something? I don't think so.
It's been just right.
Yeah. Not at all weird. Oh, wait, it's been weird?
Oh, yeah, it's been weird. Cool. All right,
I'll be right back.
Yeah, we're going to take a couple minutes. With music going. Hi, everybody. Thank you, everybody who came out and watched video games with Bryce all day yesterday. I knew it would be a long stream, and it's only through the grace of God it ended up being only 12 and a half hours. It ended up being a lot of fun, and can we not have this right now? Great, thank you. It ended up being a lot of fun, and I wish the PlayStation. I wish I had better set up the PlayStation so we could also do those games. But it was fun. We if you missed it, it'll be be my rhythms on my roll my eyes. I did not roll my eyes. I did give a side eye, but I did not roll my eyes. We ended up playing like the entire first chapter of the new King's Quest game that came out last year, maybe even the year before that. We ended up playing like 10 different games over the course of 12 and a half hours. So those will go up sometime this week on youtube.com/Neshcom. But yeah, that was fun. It had been a long time since I'd done a stream, one of those super long, 8-hour plus streams. But my throat, oh my god, my throat was super sore. Or not sore, but just like shot. But yeah, it's cool. I don't know. It's one of those weird things where it's like, okay, cool. I'm waking up and showering, and then I'm gonna stream for the entire day, and then I'll go to bed because that was the whole thing. Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
Things here. Yeah, that Greta Van Fleet sounded pretty cool. That little clip. I'm gonna add it to my.
Yeah, the other songs on there. It's a pretty solid EP with other stuff on there, and I'm excited to see, when they write more and work with a great, like a great producer or whatever. I was just, but yeah, I'm very happy with that album.
Yeah.
It was Drudge.
Yeah. Also, yeah. Weird. How did that? Was it just like? I saw this on the iTunes, and
I guess, you probably got it. I mean, like, I love Led Zeppelin, right? I mean, like, I have a, soft spot for that, and kind of like, it's like, yeah, and I wish, there was, like Brian was saying, more like this sort of thing, but a newer sort of take. Like, I like a lot of 80s stuff, and there's been a lot of cool, like, people doing stuff like early 80s sort of things, and that seems to be kind of cool. But like when it comes to just kind of classic rock,
Yeah, that's definitely like a super underserved corner for new music, at least in a big crossover sort of way. Where if this Greta Van, I keep wanting to say Greta Van Susteren, which is not right. Greta Van Fleet.
Greta Van Fleet.
If they keep getting if they end up with a breakout or more breakout success or crossover success rather, like that could
They
be
could,
the next.
you listen to the album, like they could open for just about anybody. They could totally. I mean, you could even have them open for like Taylor Swift. You could totally, because I think that because these guys are all young, they're good-looking kids. I could see that audience just going, "Oh, this is really cool and different."
Yeah.
So,
JC Calhoun says Robert Plant keeps putting out new solo albums. Yeah. Okay.
it's not the same.
Well, and also you just want new people in the genre.
Yeah, I mean, Paige Plant, when they were doing the two together, there was some cool stuff there. But you want somebody like, you want kind of, it's when you get that kind of energy to it, some people, you want that kind of like, let's take this and then not feel that you have to be limited by this or whatever.
Yeah. Very cool. Let me see if we got an email. I feel like we might have gotten an email in the past week.
Email.
But I know I've gotten a lot of emails in the past week. Fudge on a fudger. Okay, that's Saturday. We can deal with that on Saturday. I guess not. No, we finished. We did this. These two are done. Did we do that? Oh, yeah, no. Okay, no, we don't. Apologies. So are you gonna end up messing around with that Sumerian thing, Andrew, or are you still working on app stuff?
Yeah, we got another app thing. It's one of those, it's neat. It looks cool, but it's like time.
Cool.
Which means I'll probably end up spending an evening playing around with it just to see.
We didn't happen to have a letter come in, did we?
We were just talking about that. We did not.
I have a topic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Andrew's brought a topic for us today on After Things. Well, I am good to go whenever you gentlemen are.
All right.
Wait, I need water. That's a smart-looking jacket there, Brian.
Yeah, Bonnie got this for me last year. I dig it.
That's right, yeah.
I can say there's a motorcycle jacket in the SpaceX shop now.
Ah, nice.
Hold on, I gotta check. I'm sorry, I want to check. Let's see. I want to see this.
Is it made
SpaceX
out of like
store having
space leather?
Space leather. We take these cows in parabolic flight where they're inseminated in zero gravity.
Oh.
15% off all orders on Cyber Monday.
No. You the resulting calf is immediately slaughtered and cured by cosmic rays.
No wonder those Teslas cost so much, am I right?
Slether.
Oh, God, Slether.
I forgot to mention, I'll do this next week. I had the Impossible Burger.
The Impossible Burger.
What is it?
Is that the Arby's Smoke Monster?
No, oh God. Look up Impossible Burger.
Okay. I have had that Meat Mountain before. That thing is good.
This is the opposite of that, Bryce.
ImpossibleFoods.com/burger. Okay, so we've got 4 beef patties here. What is this? Oh,
But
is this
not.
Plant protein?
Plant-based burger.
Oh, wow. And wow.
Wheat, coconut oil, and potatoes.
It looks good.
Yeah, they photographed it well.
I'm literally salivating right now.
That's pretty cool. So you tried this?
I tried this.
And
I had it done like medium well, and it was a little bit too well done.
Really?
I'm going to go back. They have it down the street for me at the counter. But I've had friends, like Ron Bailey, Reason. Ron did one where he had more. He had his more more rare, more pink, and that's what I need to do because the thing that they use heme, which is basically heme is what gives it the sort of the bloody kind of sort of texture.
Oh, that's we thought you put it out like the hemoglobin, myoglobin.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
The juice,
the bloody stuff in a steak.
Right, but it's not blood. It's
right,
the
it's
proteins that are in blood.
Correct.
And water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they use
heme in that, and that's sort of the magic ingredient that gives it that sort of that. Hold on.
Let me see. HEME. Heme is the basic building block of life on Earth, including plants, but it's uniquely abundant in meat. Huh.
So yeah, it gives it the juicier texture. So mine was a little too dry, but that was the fault of the preparation, not of that. I've had friends who tried it, meat lovers who tried it, and think it's great. It is a great start to a meat substitute burger because, like, we all agree, like, we're all meat eaters here, but we can all see, like, 100 years from now, we'll be like, oh yeah, we just eat meat.
Well, I cannot wait for the future where the prized bull at the county fair is then stays alive, but its cloned meat becomes world famous, and everybody just loves it, and then you get to meet the cow who gave you the burger you just ate.
So the advantage of this is it uses less land. Like it uses far more, reduces the amount of CO2 produced, whatever. It's a more less demanding on the environment. And that's when when will we, well, maybe we'll always have meat. I don't know. But part of the reason to move away from it is it's more expensive than a burger now, but there's a point where that cost falls below meat. And if it becomes below meat and healthier and even tastier, it's like, oh, do you want it with, you want your taco with, beef, or do you want it with Impossible? Well, I'll have Impossible beef, okay.
So one of the ideas that had an image that has stuck with me for years is talking about the future of meat. And there are different vectors that make meat problematic. There's the greenhouse gases. There's the
land usage.
The cruelty aspect and stuff. And one of the solutions was, what if you genetically engineered a species of cow that grows without a head and has no brain to suffer, and it just grows, and then you inseminate that one, and it squeezes out a baby who also has no head. And you just you put grass in, and you keep putting grass in until it grows big enough, and then you.
Well, that sounds unethical.
But weirdly, it's more ethical though, right?
So years ago, back when Justin was in high school, I showed him this article. It was from Newsweek, and it was this editorial or opinion piece at the back of Newsweek. And it was talking about cloning, and it was this imagine a whole, imagine an entire floor of a hospital filled with brainless bodies being used to harvest organs. I'm like, God, sounds like a great idea. The horror of that scene. No, that they're you said brainless, and that was Bryce's reaction was this sounds horrifying because it's the form, not.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the gut reaction, right? I have questions for your hypothetical, but we are in between shows right now.
Okay, one other thing.
Okay.
Another idea could be, what if there was a pill, and this is for the health side of meat because it's not great, for your body. Would you take a pill that had zero side effects and just suddenly you just didn't want meat anymore? Didn't like it, wasn't suddenly unpleasant. You just never craved big fatty burgers, and and that's all that changed.
You didn't need it.
Yeah,
but you still needed, your grains.
Well, yeah. Of course, you're gonna have to eat health. Yeah, it's just when you look at the menu, you're like, well, I want something heavy that's gonna give me protein and have this stuff. And then when you look at that menu, just meat is the least attractive thing.
I don't know. I enjoy the taste of meat.
Well, you do now. But what if you could decide to not?
If I could decide to not want a thing that
I
like?
And you know what? I guess what about this? What if you knew there was another pill that it's like, hey, man, if your quality of living's, changed, then, you could do this and it'll flip the genetic marker back.
It would be interesting to try. It would be interesting to try and because certainly eating less meat or eating less beef is a little better for you, but I don't know.
The problem with going like strictly vegetarian, is, and I get my vegetarian friends will disagree with me this, but like it is hard. You have to do a lot to get the things you get out of meat. It's hard. Like creatine. I have a friend who was like, super vegetarian, vegan, yogi, knew a lot about it, was a pretty good health, gets a cut, doesn't heal. Takes forever to heal. Starts eating meat. Super reluctant to heal, super reluctant to eat meat, eats it, sees how fast he heals because of the creatine, because of these other things in there. And it's like, yes, there are vegan bodybuilders as these things, but man, the amount of time that my friends who do that have to spend thinking about food, you gotta just eat the meat, just, say a prayer for the cow. Yeah. Ready?
Yep. Feeling it.
Take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to After Things with Bryce Castillo.
Hello, everybody.
Brian stifling a sneeze, Brushwood.
The worst part was I hit the mute button and then nothing came out. So as far as anybody watching goes, I just did an impression of a rabbit.
Well, and I'm Andrew Main.
Hi, Andrew.
Oh, I sneeze at will because I have total, complete control. It's not true. And it's worse, you're like, okay, it's going to come back, and then it never does.
Hey, man, what are we working on today?
So I want to talk about a couple things. Did you see the announcement where Elon Musk unveiled the Semi? The Tesla Semi?
Not since we last did.
Week, right.
You did mention that it was worth watching. We talked through the broad strokes, but if there's a detail that I haven't heard about, I'd love to hear it.
Well, they unveiled the pricing, so that's what happened since then. As they say, it's going to like $150,000 and like $180,000 for this thing.
Yeah, dude, that's like just get that and instead of a house, just get
and live in it.
Yeah, man, and tow your house around.
Dude,
and then
I'm so there. Well, tow your Roadster around there, because it can be like Knight Rider. It's problem solved.
Oh my god!
So now,
totally
the latest. I'm getting to a point here, and it's not going to be an Elon Musk episode for those of you that are sick of us hearing us talk about this. But I got my Boring Company hat, by the way. He got permission from LA, then discussions with Los Angeles County, etc., to continue expanding. They're applying for permits to expand their tunnel way north, way more expansions, like all the way to the valley. They're applying to be able to do this. And the city and the county or whatever have been very, very cooperative with this. They're very eager to let him try this experiment. He thinks in like a year or two's time, he thinks he can have the tunnel going from where it is in Hawthorne, maybe all the way up into the San Fernando Valley, which is where I live. And this is a test tunnel.
How many of the tunnels have been done at this point?
Well, he's done like something like 300 or 500 feet so far. Okay. So he's dug that far so far, and he seems to be confident enough to expand this little hobby even further. And what he's talking about is people go like, well, we have tunnels, but it's a 3D network of tunnels. It's not just a tunnel. With this technology, if you can lower the cost, we dig a tunnel from here to there, and people are like, oh, we do that highways, and people still want to use them. Yeah, if you want to add another highway, it takes you 20 years, and you don't have any place to put it. You want to dig another tunnel here, you dig it below the other tunnel. Want to add another tunnel? Go below. Want another one?
So in other words, it's like a whole honeycomb network of warrens basically underground.
Yeah, so you could do that. So anyhow, so that's moving forward. We'll see, and he's got permission also on the East Coast to do some more test tunnels. There's a lot of enthusiasm to try this. We'll see what happens, but it's gone way further than anybody's expected. Okay. Unveils a Semi, unveils this. Meanwhile, there's more, looks like there's more enthusiasm with the defense industry as far as the big Falcon rocket. A lot of these things are happening. So he's got, and then he hit, hold on for this. Wait one moment.
He's gotten up.
He struck gold. He was digging and he hit gold. Oh, on the cover of Rolling Stone, yeah.
The Architect of Tomorrow, the cover says. 25 people shaping the next
By the way,
years.
quick reminder, this is not an episode about Elon Musk. Just so we're clear.
This is about Rolling Stone.
This is
gathering
stones that roll.
Here's where I'm getting. Here we are. It's almost December. The year's almost up. New Year's is coming up, and we're all kind of, I think, of the mentality New Year's resolutions are sort of BS, but there is a time for New Year's introspection, right?
Yeah.
And you look at somebody like him, and you go, this guy's kind of like firing on all cylinders. Probably not a lifestyle anybody would really want to have if you live it, and he probably finds himself way overcommitted. Jeff Bezos hit the 100 billion. He's now like down to like 99.6 right now.
Boo.
I'm sure his wife is like, no, I'm going to kiss you when you're at 100 billion. I'm sorry. Bezos has spent his life building a big company, being very intelligent. Both of these guys are very scientific in how they build things and how they approach these things. These guys understand scientific method, etc. This is happening. I want to talk about the concept of, you say, what should you shoot for? What should you do? Leveling up. How do you level up?
Man, it's tough because the first step is the hardest one, which is to make an honest assessment of what is it you do, how do you do it, how much of it is trading your time for money, how much of it could be done by other people. And you'll notice, like, one of the Robert Kiyosaki books talks about, gives a fable or a parable of two entrepreneurs, and they're both tasked with bringing water to a village. And one of them, dude, runs out, grabs 3 buckets, runs 1 mile out to the lake, scoops up the bucket, comes back, starts selling them for $3 a pail, and he just thinks life is the best thing ever. And he's making $3 a bucket and just running as fast as he can. And in fact, he's even able to hire some other people to run buckets back and forth and all that stuff. The other dude does nothing for 5 years. Instead, he sketches plans, he interviews, he hires architects, loses tons of money as they draw up plans, and then eventually builds a pipeline that just starts, sending water constantly nonstop right up to the town, and he charges 3 cents per bucket of water. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, that one guy who moved very, very quickly, but essentially was just trading his time for money, had a system that could not scale. There was no way to go up from where he was. And overnight, he went from being the only game in town to completely out of business because he didn't future-proof and think about ways to scale. And so in previous periods of introspection, when I was on tour in my early 30s, I was like, I hit a point of complete saturation where I had as many shows and was spending as much time on the road as I was comfortable doing anymore, and I would be taking away from the family. The money was good, and I was like, well, maybe I should just start increasing the price. But the market I was in, I couldn't, elevate beyond a certain price point that would change their budgets. And so I had to start thinking like the guy running a pipeline and not like the guy running a bucket back and forth. So if you want to be not an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, but you want to be closer to them than you are right now, then you got to think like where that line from Fight Club, waste is a thief. Where are you being stolen from? Where's waste in your system? And for me at the time, once I had a budget, it's like, well, let me start outsourcing more of the graphic design work, of the of the marketing campaigns and all that stuff. Let me invest more time in a way to reach more people by pitching this Scam School show. And then, once Scam School started getting somewhere, it's like, well, let me figure out how I can put even more time out there. I've got to develop the skills of learning how to talk on a microphone. So let me start doing the BB Live show and stuff. And it's been, a 12-year journey to pivot from being a bucket carrier to getting closer to that, that other side of things. So, but along that journey, it's always scary to make bets. It's always scary to invest money and capital resources and call favors on your friends. But of everything for me, the hardest part was that core assessment of what am I doing and where do I want to be?
I think it's a very interesting analogy, and it's one of those things that you have to sort of tell people too. Because I have friends that would tell you, "Oh, I'm planning to build a pipeline." It's like you ain't doing jack. If you're Elon Musk, you would start the bucket system and use that to fund the pipeline, but you'd know what the hell you're doing, And that's the thing, you knew what you're doing. I had the same sort of epiphany with you. Like I'm out doing shows, and I'm like, what is my business? And I said, oh, my business is selling shows. Do I want to be in the business of selling entertainment and shows like this and live shows? I'm like, no, I don't. If I want to be in the business of selling live shows, then I need to just take me out of the situation and sell shows, sell other entertainers, package that, become a show producer like that.
And by the way, a lot of people, I watched a lot of people make that transition, is they maxed out their schedule and all these schools were like, well, what else can you give us? And it's like, well, I don't have time to write another show for you for the fall semester, but you can hire my so-and-so friend. And then they start realizing that the thing of value that they really built was the network of contacts and the reputation for delivering quality performances.
So I did that with TV. You know, I went out and pitched my own magic show, and I did a pilot, and it was under option. I'm like, while I wait, why don't I create other shows? And so I sold stuff to Lionsgate and G4 and Cartoon Network and other places. And I said, okay, I can create other ideas for shows, and then play that game of maybe one of them catches on and becomes big or whatever. But then it's I still create and do that, because I have a partner that I work with. But you have to realize you're in a lot of different businesses. You can say, what do you want your business to be? And I said, well, part of my business is my creativity, and I could write books. And so I did that, and putting stuff under option and things like that. But you have to ask yourself, what business are you in? And using Scott Adams' example, what do you have energy for? Energy is a very, very critical thing, not passion, but energy.
Although I would say that passion is an ingredient. Energy is the total amount of output that you could do. And passion is one of the vectors that fuels your energy. If you lack passion, then you will have less energy for a thing than if you do have passion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And I guess his point was sort of saying is, we're passionate about a lot of things, but energy is a thing you just get up and you'll go do. Mm-hmm. And obviously there has to be a passion there, but passion alone isn't enough. I look at how I've been doing my time management, and I'm horrible. I know I need a certain amount of time to let my brain refresh. I know I have to have a certain amount of time to let my brain sort of just reset and stuff like this. So I understand that, I can't sit in front of my computer 18 hours a day and just write books. That would not be productive. And so that's why I do other things. And now I've got a couple big projects right now that are like, okay, these are the important ones. I will spend X amount of time on this, X amount of time on this, X amount of time on this, but I'm going to take time away from where I would normally people go out and hang out on a Friday night. I take time away from watching Netflix shows, and I'll put it towards a project. And that for me has been, how do I level up? I level up by focusing on a couple things, partnering with people that can help make these things happen, and walking away when I know that thing is dead.
That's the hard one, man. The walking away when you know the thing is dead is everyone's excited at the beginning of a thing and the promise, but the money's made and knowing when to stop.
Well, and I think that, so I'll give you an example. So what I can tell you about The Naturalist right now is Amazon Publishing, Thomas and Mercer was my publisher for that, bought 2 more books. That got released. That got announced. So I have a book coming out in March, which is already written, already ready to go. And then I have to deliver another book in April, another book at some other point beyond that. And I'll probably have both those books written before April, right? So I'm in the publishing role. I've got that thing going on. And there's some other stuff, The Naturalist, that interesting things there. But I say, okay, I could just say, okay, that's great. I could just focus on that, maybe do another Station Breaker book, whatever. I started writing a new series, an entirely new series and I said, what do I know now about what I did before? And Naturalist is really, it's at start of life as a bigger property perhaps, but there's only so much I can do at this point. I've sort of done what I can do there. It's sort of launched, and now I can just sort of wait and say, okay, great, let me enjoy the rewards of this. Or like I spent this weekend working on the next series because I've now got people who want to buy that one and, do things with it, which is cool. And because I said, you know what, instead of waiting for this thing to peter out or just to see what, do it, just do the next thing, get into the next thing.
Yeah. Well,
and it's not even for self-employed and creative people. Even if you're working at a 9-to-5 job or whatever, a lot of the best advice or the way to move up is to quit your job and to move up to a non-lateral position.
Well, I guess,
within reason. This, I'm not selling people to go and quit their job.
Well, right. But I guess what I was thinking of, because the moment you said
Especially
that,
if you're a podcast producer.
the moment you said that, I was thinking about folks who are in 9-to-5 jobs. And in that case, it's not an individual entrepreneur. People who work in any large corporation should understand you're still an entrepreneur. You're just playing your entrepreneurial game within a set structure. So if you're in management, you have a team. So you ask that same question of your team, like where is the landscape headed? What is going to cause this team to get folded up and no longer be relevant because some other team is going to be working on, or how is the marketplace shifting where this will be irrelevant or whatever, and how can I get ahead of it? And so you still do your bucket carrying 9-to-5 job, and your team provides, or whether your team is a team of one, you show up and you type in the receipts and now you've done it.
Yeah.
That's what
every office job is.
It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. or like you go and you answer the phone queue or whatever. Yeah. But like Andrew was saying, within the confines of that, you can see where stuff is headed, and you can provide value preemptively by working on a side project. What Google calls it their 20% time or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like whether your company gives you that 20% time, decide that you owe it to yourself and your career to take it to give yourself 20% time. Just put the 20% on top. Just decide you'll work 20% harder than everyone else.
Be careful about allocating existing time.
Yes, but I mean,
yeah,
exactly. But I mean, just do that same 20% time. Just decide you're going to work just 20% harder than everyone else, and you're going to do it on speculative projects that could transform your role in the corporate work, transform the importance of your team if you have a team, give you a team if you don't. But it's like your boss. Your boss's boss is when you come up and make a proposal, you're like, this is speculative. If you've got some cash, I could do this on the side, and we could see how it, what it yields for the company. And then meanwhile, you're building another asset of value to where, there are people who sometimes they invest their 20% time coming up with ideas that renders their 9-to-5 job useless. Sure. There's a friend of mine who built the entire, every email sent out, every reply. But there's a widget company.
Jason Damon.
Yeah. There's a company that sells widgets, and they've got a system for every single thing to go through. There is not one email either way that is not pre-written.
It's all automated?
Or automated, or it takes a light touch. Like, so you receive the incoming email, you know what part of the sales process you're at, so you don't write a response to move somebody from interest to attention and all that stuff. Instead, you just say, okay, well, this guy is in this demographic, I'm going to send him this email, and once all that's written, it's on rails, and the guy wrote everything, and he's like, well, now there's nothing left for me to do for you, which on the one hand, like, boohoo, he's not at that company anymore. But on the other hand, he now gets to be a self-employed entrepreneur who has a track record of I build systems for large companies that takes them from $1 million a year to $10 million a year. And now I could just do that again for everyone, and then I could sell my system to somewhere else. So I don't know. It's be future focused. It's that whole be where the puck's gonna be, not where it is.
Yeah.
So my side project over a year ago was AuthorPage. Right? Mm-hmm. AuthorPage was the site I created to make, because I'm like, oh man, it's hard to make just like I just want an easy way to create a web page for myself or whatever. So I went through the work, created this sort of template sort of thing, runs on Rails, whatever like that. And I just free to other authors. I've got over 100 authors on AuthorPage right now.
Oh, that's great.
And I have not done any coding on this in probably months. I check on it periodically. Now, if I just sent Bryce a link, and every now and then I'm still doing beta invites, like if you email me like this. So I send a link. So here's a guy writing in Hindi. If you scroll down there, click on one of those books.
Sure. Here we've got Hari Janani. Wow,
so
that's great.
I had no idea. This was just somebody I said, hey, yeah, sure. I just said he got an invite to use it. And now I've got an author that's got his own page there, whatever, and the writing's in Hindi. I mean, it's just amazing that you create a thing that's sort of a side project, and now it's become a very useful tool. I know other people put short stories there and all that. And that was sort of a side, let me go do this kind of thing because it'll be fun. Story Voice is having sort of a similar thing where I'm like, let me go create this thing for fun. And now I have writers, people using this sort of stuff, and I've got a new side project thing that.
Well, and that's the best feeling, is when you've created a thing and people are using it, and then they start coming up with applications that even you hadn't even considered for it, or they say something that it's like you slap your forehead. You're like, no, of course, dummy. That's what this always wanted to be. For example, on the Scam School shoot, the whole reason we do the premium high-end puzzle boxes with each release of a deck of new cards is that the margins on a single deck of premium cards are not very great. They're very expensive to make. We can't afford to do, dozens of thousands at once. So we have to do small runs of 5,000 at a time. And that means, there's a lot of prestige associated with it. I'm proud of them. The art is good. They're fun, and they're great to work with. But I was like, there needs to be an experience that is premium. And so taking a cue from Theory 11, they would oftentimes, when they released a new deck of cards, have a premium collector's edition stuff, whether, do a box or whatever. So we had the idea to do the puzzle box with the Arcana artifact. And then it's like, well, that really went over well. It was our single biggest thing that we ever sold. So it's like, well, let's try something similar with the new cards, the Outlaws, and let's do it with the Outlaws Relic. And then we did it again with what I think is our best effort yet this holiday season. Yeah, the Outlaws Vault is the most complicated. It's the biggest by size. It's the most intricate, hardest puzzle to solve. Unless you get one of the units that was seated wrong when it set out, in which case just reseat it and hopefully it'll be fine. But it wasn't until the whole reason these puzzle boxes exist is because I was trying to figure out a way, how do I take a $12 to $15 premium item and make it a bigger experience that's worthy
partially commoditized
of $100 to $200 or $100 to $150, right? And then somebody was asking, like, would you ever consider doing a puzzle box without a deck of cards inside? Because I was, something that I could put a present into. And then all of a sudden I was just like, holy crap, that's a good point. Wait, yeah, I could just sell an awesome puzzle box because along the way we built up relationship with the manufacturers. This guy really knows his stuff. He does quality work. And I was like, that would be brilliant. So,
this week.
Well, no. Here, but I mean, like, you get caught up in a, like, who am I and what do I do? Oh, I make decks of cards. Well, now I'm making them fancy decks of cards. But it's like, well, why don't you not even do the cards part and instead just have the box? That's how Scam Stuff happened, is because we were writing the Scam School books as a way to monetize the presence from the Scam School brand. And then we sat down, the problem was we'd sell out, but once everyone bought the book, they couldn't buy the book a second time. And after 3 years of doing that, it hit us one weekend, like, what if we sold something that we didn't have to spend 6 months writing in order to release it? What if we just, found something really neat that we liked, that had a decent little chunk of margin, and just made it a really fun experience on the store? And so we pitched Scam Stuff, and the rest most people are familiar with. At any rate, the only way
don't be trapped up in your original ideas.
Correct. Always be constantly questioning, like why am I here, and where are things going, and what might it be if I wasn't tied to what I was doing? If I had no sunk costs in anything, what are all the things I would consider? What are the assets?
Or even just starting clean and just saying, like, hey, I've been doing X project for now, and I've iterated and I've done all of these phases or whatever, but what if I was starting it again from the ground up today? What things would I change? And sometimes that can be enough of an energy boost to make you go over the hump of making hard decisions, of totally rewriting something from the very beginning, or saying, cutting these things and we're making this cleaner, sleeker, faster, whatever. Like, don't be afraid to step back and say, what if I just started over? Because the second time you do something will almost certainly be better than the first time you do it.
100%. I was looking through all of the stuff on Scam Stuff, and I was amazed. Just the amount of quantity and stuff you have there. And customs. I mean, I just watching where that started from and looking where it is now, it's impressive. And Bryce, your point absolutely was something I want to say earlier. Like, yeah, the second time you go at it, if you learn, and the key is to learn. Often people don't learn. They don't know what happened, why things worked, or whatever. They attribute way too much to luck or their own expertise, and it's often inverse. But I think it's to assess your skills. Is just say there's things I like to do, then there are things that I want to do. People ask me, what's my dream job? Managing a strip club on a space station. But, until then,
20,
you know,
30
what do I
years,
need to do?
we got time. We got time.
Yeah, I know.
Start petitioning
Not ruling
NATO
that
now.
out. But
You're going to need
say,
a lot of poles, though. Like, it's going to be all poles.
You would think they make spaceships with a lot of poles, though, because of the gravity.
Well, yeah, okay.
It's a spinning space station. I forgot that part.
Yeah.
Or not all the time. I don't know.
Man, you know what? Actually, I'm thinking about all the body parts that would
Zero G Friday. Here at the
And I'm gonna,
ISS.
it's not just gonna be women. There's gonna be a section of dudes too. Whatever. It's for everybody. You know. So.
Well, I know. That's what I mean.
Exactly.
Plenty of body parts that are going to react differently in microgravity.
Everybody comes to see. But in all seriousness, because I have to say that was I'm joking, people. I'm joking.
Meanwhile, you just get you get a text. It's a PayPal payment from Elon who's watching. He's like, yeah,
Make
let's
it happen.
Yeah, go start.
I think you need to take an assessment and say, what are you good at? Sit down on the piece of paper and say, what am I good at? And by good at means not like, oh, I like doing this thing, but are you really good at it? And often people...
a different way to think of it, the phrase that I did when I quit my day job is, I thought, what are my natural gifts? What is easy for me that is harder for some other people? And does that matter in what I'm doing?
But some of it can be things you've developed. Like, I would say that half the things I would write down were things that, like, I couldn't write a novel 10 years ago. I couldn't code. And I'm not like a great coder, but I'm really good at, like, how would you do this? Like, all right, I will show you a way to do this. And an experienced coder would be like, oh my God, why did you do it that way? I'm like, because there was no solution out there and I had to come up with one.
Yeah.
But
no, go ahead, finish.
yeah, so I say you put these things and I say, what am I? But I'm not like, if I wanted to create a company, like, I would not base it on my ability as a coder, you know. But my point is, though, is like, I get it, I understand these things, I know that. I'm pretty good in sales in the room when it comes to pitching big things, so I'm like, I'm good at that. And putting those and understanding what people need to know to make a decision. So I say, like, you sit down and figure out, what are you good at? What do you have the energy for? And then, you know, if I were Bryce, but let's say I was a slightly alternate universe version of Bryce, and I love music, I'd say, you know, I love music and I love creating my stuff, but I really get production. And now, but instead of me just telling people, hey, I'm going to lease out my services as a studio engineer or whatever, I'm going to create my own label. And everybody go like, oh, anybody can create your own label. Yes, anybody can create your own label. Anybody can write a book. But how you do it could be totally different. Be like, you know what? I'm going to look for people within 100 miles, 200 miles of Austin, within a tripper thing. And then I'm going to say, hey, I will produce this album for you. And I'm going to put you on a bill with some other people. And I'm going to manage and produce whatever kind of thing.
And that's a very good example today, because the value of labels is so much more diminished compared to a decade or 2 decades ago, where nowadays they're either, you know, they used to be a bank. They would help pay to get your stuff recorded and give you promotion and stuff, where nowadays the most effective thing your label can do is help put you in touch with other artists and other acts, because anybody can make a music video on YouTube. Anyone can make a video on their iPhone. We were talking at the end of Weird Things of, like, there's all sorts of music accessories. It's easier than ever to get into the production side, and it's easier than ever to do promotion. So what you need from someone, you know, if you're giving someone a stake in your in the specific example, is they need to be a connection. They need to help put bridges together. And so if it's a matter of, like, understanding what unique value you can provide, not just what it is that you like to do.
Yeah, look, it's saying that, like, oh, and this is a thing where it might be like a lot of people could do this, but they're not. They're not the ones organizing it and putting it together.
Can I tell you the goofiest thing?
No, Brian, it's not. It's
well, I mean, okay.
Not goofy.
There was a moment. What was it? Doing a gig, and I've got, like, 4 trunks that are coming off on the luggage stuff, and I'm at this one side. You know, we're all gathered around gate 4, where the luggage is coming out, or we're waiting for the luggage to come
carousel
out.
there,
right? Yeah. But it's gate 3. The light comes on, and it very clearly the luggage is coming out, and it's pretty obvious that one of two things: either for whatever reason, we've all been standing at the wrong one, or it's another flight. Nothing's happening at the one that we're at, so nobody. And meanwhile, something's happening over here. I don't know whether or not that's going to turn out to have my luggage or not. But it occurs to me I have nothing to lose by walking over there and cozying up so that the moment it comes off, I can get it and be first to get my luggage. And I was astonished because virtually nobody else did until they started recognizing their stuff. And then they walked over. And I was like, we all spent that same block unit of time. We were all equally capable of walking over and taking that risk. And yet, you know, in that moment, I was the only one who was like, well, you know, who knows? Let's see. And I put myself in a position to be the one, you know, I had a crummy spot on the old one, but then I took a risk and invested and went over there and happened to get it. And it occurred to me that so much of business and making it as an entrepreneur is just doing that. Just, you know, like, yes, anybody could, but just be one of the people who will.
Yeah, and you know, applying a little thought to it. My favorite example is Dumb and Dumber. The bus at the end, the Hawaiian Tropic bus stops. Like, oh, we're looking for a couple of towel boys to lather us down, and da 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 da. And they're like, wow, what a couple of lucky guys are gonna get that job. Maybe you'll find somebody that way, because they just don't think. Oh,
because you have blinders on. It never even occurs to them.
Yeah, and like you'll hear like, you know, you come up with an idea and people are like, well, why doesn't, you know, well, what if the such and such company does this? Like, well, that company wants to do it. They can do anything, you know, but are they? And the fact that somebody could go in there and you could have competition is not a reason. You know, Uber's not a sophisticated company when it comes to technology. Uber's worth $60-70 billion. Like, well, I want to create a company where you pull out your phone and you get a car, but the car is just driven by a part-time driver. Oh, nobody's going to want, you know, a part-time driver driving them. You know, you can think of all the reasons why nobody would want to do that. You know, Airbnb, like, oh, what if I rented out my room? Like, what if you get a psychopath there? What if you get this? Yes, life is filled with risks.
Yeah.
But, you know,
and I guess that's the funny part is now Airbnb is in a place where they have enough money where part of the Airbnb experience, I mean, do they offer insurance? Do they help you mitigate those risks now? Like, are you able to pay within their system or something? I would imagine.
I
would imagine.
So,
yeah.
Maybe
I mean, certainly, like
clicks into weird realty things that they want to avoid.
Yeah, maybe, but you know, but regardless, it's like, you know, I'm not saying be irresponsible, but man, there's risk always, and I understand that it's very seductive to believe that there's no risk in anything. But it's a lie, and in your heart, you know it's a lie. So why not just be comfortable with risk? And then just the conversation, a friend of mine, a mentalist, Christopher Carter, when I was first getting started, he was nice enough to spend like an hour talking to me on the phone, and he was really excited. He was like, man, I've got for the first time ever 2 shows booked every single day of the week, a morning show or a nooner and an evening show booked every single day for 2 weeks straight at a bunch of colleges. And I'm like, well, where is it? And he was like, oh, Minnesota. And I'm like, well, when is it? He was like, oh, like February. I'm like, wait a minute. You booked that? Like, what if there's snow? What if you don't make it to a show? And he's like, well, then I would imagine I won't be paid for those. And it was like, to me, that was like the most horrifying thing. Like, I would never book all that much work. What if you didn't make it? And the answer is like, well, if you don't make it, then you don't get paid.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, pretty great that I have 14 gigs booked, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to change the mindset. And, you know, we get so accustomed to success stories because also if you're the person that has the success, you want to sort of suggest that it was predestined because it makes you feel more secure. It doesn't make it feel like it's just fleeting. Particularly in entertainment, you hear these success stories. It was meant to be because of this, because it gives you comfort because you realize how fleeting, how fast things and fortunes can change. Jeff Bezos drove the first batches of books to the post office himself, drove them from the warehouse to where they were fulfilling them. They had their living room filled with card tables. He gave up. He had a really good job in New York, you know, good Wall Street job. He was making good money, but he had a vision. He said, I'm going to follow this through. He came from a good family, not a super wealthy family at all, you know, adopted, by the way, you know, has that kind of whole sort of, you know, or different, you know, interesting relationship with the father or whatever. But anyhow, Bezos was a guy that had to go through. If you looked at what he went through the early stages, none of us would do this. Not none of us, but I'm saying very few people would. And I use this example all the time. What's the difference between Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg and everybody else? The day they became a billionaire, they still showed up at work. It wasn't like, I'm going to make $1 billion and then I'm out. If you have that mentality, unless you run some sort of con or get super, super lucky, you're never going to get there because you're just looking for each opportunity to exit. And you might get an early exit where it's like, it's a couple $1 million. You know what? I'm happy. I'm good to go. But if you're just going to change the world.
Have you noticed in almost every entrepreneurial documentary, there's always that one guy who they interview who did cash out at $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, no, I'm not bitter. You know, it's like I couldn't have taken the company in the direction he did to make it that big.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, that's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make a little company where somebody could drive other people around. And that's why I sold my shares.
Yeah,
Very
it's
specific character in this documentary.
I don't know. I'm half channeling. I can't remember where I heard it most recently. But it was the UFC, the 30 for 30 documentary.
Right.
They did a thing on the UFC. UFC was created by one guy who's just like, I just want to see what happens when a Taekwondo guy takes on a judo guy, taking on a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. And then somebody after the fact came in, the first episode pay-per-view event was kind of a shit show, but also it was it did well, and somebody saw the potential and then bought him out, and then the guy, and meanwhile UFC is one of the biggest thing ever. It was like, oh no, I just thought it would be cool. I'm okay with it.
I mean, what do you want though? Like, you don't want that person to be like, "Oh, I really messed up."
Oh no, but
like you have to that's especially when you have a near miss of that size, you have to be positive about it. And there's no benefit.
Oh no. And I'm sure he's genuinely nothing but happy. But just be aware. Ask yourself if getting $1 million and being the footnote guy in the documentary is okay with you. And I'm betting a lot of people, maybe 99% of everyone listening right now, are like, that sounds like a pretty great end to my story, is getting paid $1 million and being a piece of something that becomes gigantic and huge. But somewhere out there is the 1% that I'm like, that are like, yeah, I don't know if I do want to do that. But then again, that's fraught with peril and folly, and you might screw it up.
Pebble.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when I invested in Apple way early days, right? And then I'm watching the stock fluctuate. And I'm like, and my friend's like, oh, we should sell it's high, and then you should do this. I sold some, and then I'm like, I watch it go low again. And I'm like, I guess I'll buy it, and back and forth. And then I'm like, it was stressing me out. I'm like, I'm not day trading is dumb, unless you're like a supercomputer. 2, I'm not a day trader. I don't have the mentality for that. I'm just gonna buy it, hold on to it, and that's it. Sell it when I need to. And I realized and also I knew the people that were trying to do the day trading kind of thing. They're all people playing poker and all this. They're really bad at estimating their winnings and stuff like this too. Like I would hear some of the dumbest things from them. Like, oh, I use a strategy. What is I bet on I bet on a stock going up, and then what happens? Like, well, if I lose the next day, I place twice as much as a bet or whatever. And you're like, that's mathematically idiotic. And you would see people do that. And there was in the 90s, there was a big thing, day trading centers. People would go there to day trade. Which was just nothing against day traders. I'm sure there are people who've done well by it, but. Anyhow,
but
I was
in general,
I'm a long-term
investor. In general, I think it is what is it? The efficient market hypothesis that basically says, look, the stock market is as efficient as a market as you will ever find, and if you're winning, it by the numbers is almost certainly because you're lucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, the exceptions would be, and I have a friend who's a business professor, and I've gotten into this. He's like, you're never going to outperform the market. I'm like, I do, but I do in the way that I don't. If you say go invest money today, I won't, because I could tell you right now, there's not a company that I felt like I did about Pixar, that I felt about Tesla or Apple or the company. Every company I've ever put more than $1,000 into, I've more than doubled my money, right? But I follow these companies for years and then go, okay, I'm going to get into it. It's modified value investing by Benjamin Graham. I look for the information deficiency. I look at where there's the misjudgment or the judgment of whatever, and do that. But
sorry, we got a bit on a side jag there. You're like, let's talk about other invment strategies.
Jim Cramer comes out in a
yeah.
My point is that like anything is that a lot of success is just random. Somebody's randomly going to win that, but there are people who consistently come out ahead. Warren Buffett, okay, Bezos, the way that he managed his company, the way he did that. Elon. There are some people. It's comforting for some people to go like, no. And I get the market, yeah, you can't. There's if people want you to invest in a more, 5 Morningstar funds outperform this. Yeah, 95 did worse. Whatever. It's it's dumb, but you can learn. You can become a better business person. You can make better decisions that improve your odds. You don't get perfect odds, but you can get better at that. Yeah. by understanding where are people acting irrationally, where can you act rationally.
So when do we want to schedule our, like we said, not resolutions, but forward-thinking goals? Because we spent today talking about how to properly assess where you are and where you came from and what you got. But next week, you want to preemptively get a jump on the
Sure.
resolution people.
Sure.
Cool.
Sure. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear from our listeners out there. Questions, challenges, goals, questions. Am I being realistic or not? Whatever. I think everybody be willing, dream big and act big. You know, I've got a couple things in the work that I can't wait to talk about that are like absolutely stupid things that I've had other people go along with now that are like, sounds great. And I'm like, I should keep my mouth shut. But
You got any picks? I have a reverse pick.
I got a pick.
All right.
So I was doing this big marathon stream yesterday, 12 and a half hours.
What?
And I think I've done 14 before. I've done these marathon streams before. They're a lot of fun. They're very tiring. But I was using it as a chance to play a bunch of games I had never played. I hadn't played this year. Because you go and buy games and you on sale or whatever. And I was really taken by King's Quest, the 2015 new version of King's Quest.
Oh, of the original, the remake of the original.
I don't know that it's a remake necessarily.
Oh, I thought it was. I thought they did updated art and made it all.
Well, this is all 3D.
Oh shoot! Well, maybe this is a new one.
Yeah, and it's it's like a 3D version of these classic puzzle genre. And at first, I was really concerned because I've played a lot of Telltale games and other adventure games like Life is Strange recently, and the bummer about those games is that they're not exactly puzzle games. They're like interactive storytelling basically, which is fine. But that also can mean that they're pretty short and not necessarily really challenging or stimulating. And while King's Quest definitely has a lot of the classic logical leaps of old Sierra and old Lucas adventure games, I think what was really nice about it was that it's episodic, but the first chapter that we played through was like 4 hours long, which is pretty long for those types of games, or rather for an episodic game. But it was also really stimulating, and it offered a lot of choice and uncertainty that was pretty engaging. And and on top of that, it looks really nice. A lot of hand drawn stuff, including like little particle effects when there's water. The splashes will be hand drawn water effects, and the voice performances are fantastic. Christopher Lloyd is in it.
Oh wow!
Doc Brown plays the old version of the king, I believe. It's
okay.
Like, there's like this framing narrative where it's like the old version of the king is telling the story to his granddaughter. And so whenever you die, it's like, Grandpa, you didn't die. Or it's like, well, that's what I would have done if I pulled the left switch.
That was first time I saw that was in the Prince of Persia, the very first one with the time dynamic. You could rewind time.
Oh, yeah,
and then when you would die, you would just hear the prince go, wait, that's not what happened. and then he backs it up.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of different stuff like that. There's still some weirdly... I only played the first chapter. I still have the other 4 to kind of get into, but it was nice to see an episodic game like that and see the amount of attention to both the performances and the actual gameplay elements. That was pretty nice. I think there's a lot of junk about it, right? There's a lot of walking around. There's a lot of just banging your head against the wall to figure out what do I do with this strudel, right? But overall, it was really cool, and I would really recommend the new King's Quest game.
So,
New.
I watched the documentary featuring lots of behind-the-scenes footage of the making of Man on the Moon, the Jim Carrey I guess quasi-biopic of the Andy Kaufman story.
Kaufman,
yeah. And so it's on Netflix. It's called Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. It's about an hour long. And I was really struck by about halfway through how much I really wanted to punch Jim Carrey.
Wow.
Just because, and maybe that's the hallmark of it being good art or whatever, but a big, first of all, if you're not familiar, Andy Kaufman's story is extraordinary and wonderful and incredible and shocking and all this stuff. I watched every documentary I could. What was it? I'm From Hollywood. Is that one of the ones about the wrestling stuff? And then I was really excited for Man on the Moon when it came out. I was disappointed that Man on the Moon, the movie, really was just a bunch of Jim Carrey recreating all of Andy Kaufman's best bits with very, very little detail of what it must have been like behind the scenes and all that stuff. And that was disappointing. But I had heard all of the stories of Jim Carrey, method acting, staying in character after the cameras were over and so on. And that's what this is all about. And I think this made me just hate method actors. Just hate everybody who plays pretend when the cameras aren't on. It's just, you just see how taxing it is for everybody around, because the shoot's over and he's continuing to play pretend to be someone he's not. And yes, I'm sure it's easier to play pretend to be Andy Kaufman when you're doing it all the time, always. But meanwhile, it's like, wouldn't a better actor be able to be civil after the shoot was over and not continue to pretend to be this total asshat the whole time? But I talked about it on Twitter, and some people agreed with portions of what I said. Some people said, wow, it's amazing that we could both look at the same piece of art and I could come away seeing somebody was at a very troubling crossroads in his acting career, having a meltdown essentially. And I was like, wow, man. And I countered with well, he sure does look proud of himself with every, crap eating grin that we see him, recounting this adventure 20 years later. So I implore the listeners to give it a watch and see which side you come on. Is this a good guy doing good acting, going through a tough time, or is it a selfish, smug a piece of work who, is, oh man, the part that just drove me nuts is how proud he is when he's talking to, I think it's Andy Kaufman's sister in character as Andy Kaufman. And I'm like, you're a real, and I think he says something to the effect of like, yeah, it was really great to give her that gift of, just, seeing her brother again. And I was just like, I didn't care for it. Didn't care for it. Didn't care for that attitude, sir. But you guys should watch it.
Okay.
It's a tricky thing, man, because I don't know. What I've read and understand kind of method is objectively speaking, I haven't noticed that there's necessarily a qualitative difference between them. Method seems to be what inexperienced actors often glom onto when they're trying to do that. And there's some actors I think are really good, but you notice, I don't want to name any names, but that will do things like always have a gimmick. They got to have a gimmick, like a prosthetic or something like this, so they can feel the character, feel the role kind of thing. But yeah. Jim Carrey's an interesting guy. He's a guy he's had a very difficult childhood, very, very traumatic childhood, and he's always had difficulty sort of trying to adjust and sort of fit in. And amazingly talented guy, though. I wish we'd see more of him, but totally understand what you're saying. My pick, I'm just going to pass. I'm going to double down on the past, everything else. Cool. I'm still in the middle of every audiobook that I was reading before. I'm still in the middle of watching, the Doctor Who when I'm been programming. So I'm kind of just been, I think nothing new to add.
Cool. Had a really good time at the Scam School shoot chatting with another reader of The Naturalist and geeking out over.
Oh yeah, y'all had a nice little chat off of the side for a while about.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this. Here, I'm going to make your pick for you. It's The Naturalist. I made the case that I think The Naturalist is your best work that I've read. Because while I really enjoyed the Jessica Blackwood stuff, I couldn't tell how much of my affection was for finally seeing magic represented well, because magic is so precious to me and so many people get it wrong, and you got it right. The world of illusions and so on. Whereas The Naturalist, there was none of that I was inherently drawn to. And the fact that I got sucked in so deeply to that experience convinced me, I think this is, Andrew, I could definitely vouch that it's my favorite work that you've done so far.
Well, I appreciate it. And I think that also it's kind of once we get out of a domain, you and I know a lot about magic or whatever, you can just sort of read me as a writer and not a guy taking all this magic background and all that and putting it into there. So
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Groovy. It's been after.
Sure has been.
Adatuma corrected me in the chat, saying that it was the daughter that never met him was a BS meeting thing. Quote, I spent 20 minutes with her so she could meet her dad. He just says sorry and moves on. Like, I mean, it's a, man, watch it because there are, it's hypnotic, and I'm glad I finished the whole thing.
Cool. Well, we'll check that out sometime. In the meantime, we're gonna call it here for Weird Things and After Things. Thank you guys Thank you guys so much for checking out the stream. We'll be back in a little while for Cord Killers. I don't know. Did we have someone Cord Killers today?
I think it's just the three of us, and I think it's going to be a very talky episode. Ooh. So if you guys have questions, this is a good episode for us to. It really was an astonishingly light news week. So now is a very, very good time.
Not a lot of big announcements during Thanksgiving.
Right. Please, if you have any questions or just topics you'd like us to talk about for Cord Killers, cordkillers@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Will be a good one.
Gentlemen, if I could talk you offline for a moment.
Yep.
Sure. Okay, we'll do that. Well, let's tell goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.